Welcome to A Photographer's Life, the channel that takes you behind the curtain into the world of professional architectural photography. Join us now for an episode with some of America's premier architectural photographers. Today's broadcast comes from a recent Zoom meeting of the Association of Independent Architectural Photographers. This discussion is led by AIAP Director Alan Blakely. We hope you enjoy the show. If you do, please let us know by liking this episode and subscribing to this channel. Now, on with the show.
I'd like to welcome everyone to the March AIAP Zoom meeting. And our topic this morning is effective marketing and networking. And this was one topic that came up again and again when I asked for responses last month after our meeting as to what you'd like to talk about. And it brought me back to an ASMP meeting that I went to. I think it was probably 1984. It was the same topic, but the recommendations were to be in Photographer's Black Book and to be in American Showcase and to have a really great physical portfolio to take around and one that was actually mailable and FedEx was a big deal at the time. So you could actually get your portfolio to somebody overnight in the special lightware case that you buy. And then the other things they talked about were cold calling and having a leave behind and portfolio reviews. And then the big one was the Yellow Pages advertising. So we're in a different world now. And I'm still thankful for that. And direct mail. I don't know how many of you ever used agency access. That was an expensive proposition where you got the names of creative directors and art directors in advertising agencies and things like that. And then also being an affiliate member of things like AIA, ASID, IIDA. I don't know that SMPS was even on the radar at that time for most of us, but it's a different world now. And so I'd kind of like to talk about maybe the hierarchy of what's important marketing wise and what's working for you and what you feel is essential right now. And so I'd kind of like to open it up as to where your marketing efforts are right now and where you're putting your money and your time as far as marketing. Anybody want to jump in on that?
I joined AIA Connecticut as an allied member in 2018. The beginning of 2018, you needed to be sponsored by two architects. So two of my clients were gracious enough to sponsor me. And it has been an absolute gold mine. ASMP is terrific. I'm a past president. I'm still on the board. I've been on the board since so long that I'm probably illegal, 2007, I think.
Okay.
And that is hugely important and valuable to me, but it's talking to the choir. And AIA allows me to meet pre-COVID in person and network and interact. And I've grown so many wonderful relationships and also have gotten a tremendous number of clients through that and then referrals from them because, if you sponsor things, if you're there, if they see you in a professional context, not as a salesperson, not as somebody coming into their office or bothering them, but just, buying them a drink at the open bar or at the cash bar during an event or something of that nature. And also having your work shown during the annual kind of celebratory dinner that was in December where they're giving out awards and your name is either mentioned or shown. It's been priceless. And, the cost for me is, I think, $499 a year. Mm-hmm. And I'm on two of the committees. So currently I'm one of the committees and it's just, it's been great. And the people are wonderful. And they become friends. And then some of the friends have become clients and some haven't. So it just depends. But it's wonderful in that respect.
Can I ask a question about that, Carl?
Certainly.
On that, are you the only photographer in your organization in the AIA? Okay.
In Connecticut chapter, I am the only one. There was the gentleman that I consider to be the number one go-to person in this state and region was a member for years. And about 2 years ago, I think he dropped his membership because he needed it wasn't necessary anymore for him. And so I became the only photographer there. And I just was featured in the March issue of their magazine under the Allied Spotlight. So I got a full page, which is worth $1,000 if I had to pay for it. 3 photographs and a nice write-up that I did with a consultant. And it just came out in the last couple of weeks. So I think that's going to be really helpful too, because it's something everybody looks at. They flip through, they see pretty pictures, and then they read about you. And it's very controlled, but it looks like it's editorial, but it's not. It's really, they solicited this from the Allied members, and I happen to be chosen to be the one that got in right now, which is the perfect time because all of the spring shooting is being decided now, today.
Yeah. In my market, I'm in Las Vegas. And the AIA here, the last time I looked into it, maybe the rates have changed, I don't know, but it was like $1,000 a year. And and there's already at least 2 photographers that I know of who are members there. So it's just trying to figure out how to navigate that a little bit more.
Could I maybe just offer a backdoor approach to that sort of thing? Because I know it's difficult to be an allied member of AIA and ASID and IIDA and all these other organizations. One of the things that I found successful is to offer, to come and speak or to contribute to their newsletter with something that's of educational value about how to make the most of your architectural photography budget, or how to put together an effective shot list for your architectural photographer, things along that line. It takes me back to David Ogilvy, the famous advertising man, who his philosophy was that the market leader is going to be identified as the one who offers to educate the market. And so that's the approach that I've always taken, is that if I can offer something that's of educational value, whether it's, in a direct mail piece or a white paper on my website, or coming and speaking in person, or contributing to a newsletter, that's effective and it's free. And so I would offer that as maybe a backdoor approach to some of these organizations, because it's really difficult to affiliate with all of them. I know SMPS in my market is a big, that's a big decision-making body for those who hire photography, and it's full of photographers already. And I've been a member off and on, as has my wife, who represents me. And it's not terribly effective for us to actually just show up at their gatherings and try to schmooze and become friends. We're a lot better off if we try to contribute something. So anyway, my 2 cents.
Can I respond to that, Alan? Because of my membership with AIA Connecticut, the first year I did the trade show, so I had a trade show booth, all my photography. They asked me to bring my drones. So I had 3 of them on display, and I actually flew the Phantom inside the hall to demonstrate it. We had it cordoned off, and then I held it as I flew around and did video of all the booths at their request as well, and gave them the footage from that gratis to the chapter. But the other thing was that I was then asked to do a presentation on drones last June as part of a virtual conference. So there was 4 of us presenting, and I think I had the highest sign-up rate. And so that was really helpful. So being a member gives you access to present periodically, and you're recognized as an expert, and you're also a colleague in a way, because there's the cheaper way to do it is as an allied member if they have that available. And they did change the rates before I joined in 2018 to make it cheaper and more accessible to allied people, and also based on the size of your company. So you might want to reinvestigate that and see if your local state chapter has a better price. And if not, you may say, look, I'm a solo practitioner. I can't afford to join at the same rate as, let's say, Pella Windows or Marvin does, because both of those competitors are part of our chapter. But there is pretty active core group of allied members. And so I think that it's a contingent of organized non-architects so that we kind of get to know each other at these various meetings. It also allows you as a member to go to open houses and to network there, to do studio tours, to meet with architects in their offices. And again, it's a priceless opportunity because they're there showing off. They've got food, drink, wine. Everybody's a little bit happy and they're open and receptive to talking to you. And it doesn't have to be a sales call. And so I really think, again, hanging out with people, it's like going to the bar at a conference where everybody there is part of the same industry and you kind of meet and greet. You're not selling anything. You're establishing a relationship in a different way. And you also can be seen as the expert by being invited in to do these talks.
I actually have a follow-up comment to that, if you don't mind, Alan. Yeah. I shoot mostly construction. I need to get back into doing architecture and really love that as well. But construction has kept me busy and paid a lot of bills. And so that's where I've been. I actually got very involved in the Nevada Contractors Association. And there are other contractor types of things, subcontract work. And there's general contractors and subcontractors. And on occasion, there are some architects in there, but all of those people need photography as well. And that membership also is expensive, even for allied members. What I did is I approached them to become their event photographer in trade for membership. And that has worked very well.
Interesting.
So if you're looking for a way, that might be an in.
Thank you.
Let's here on this.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. I'm in the DC market and found my AIA membership not to be very valuable. A, because it was expensive, and B, because there already were a lot of other photographers in there. So I was a member for a long time and didn't really feel it was beneficial. But to support everything that Carl was saying, I belong to the DC Building Industry Association, which are basically architects and contractors. And I am their only photographer member. So what didn't work with AIA has worked with something else. So the exact same thought process. And I would stress committee work as well, because, all of a sudden I'm sitting around a conference room table and everyone in the room is an architect or a contractor. So, what better way to one-on-one get to know people? So I would say that where you really want to get FaceTime with people and, you're doing it every month and you're doing volunteer projects together through them is do committee work as well.
Okay. What about the idea of actually going and doing, making sales calls and asking for appointments and doing portfolio reviews and that sort of thing? Does anybody do that now? Is that a part of business anymore? It's not for me.
Well, I've done it in a different way. I've done it in a way. I've done it in a way to actually just introduce myself.
Okay.
And I do know a lot of people in the industry here because how I did it, like Linda, I went a step further. I did their magazine and I did it free annually, giving me the door to all these people. So then I would just go in and then I would show them my portfolio, and that's how I would get the jobs. Show them, my degrees, my portfolios and everything. And slowly it opened up a lot of doors for me.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
When my wife used to rep me actively, she would have a leave behind. And if from years ago, if you've been in the business long enough, you remember that a leave behind was a big deal. You had to have that with your business card and something that was pretty sensational visually to leave behind with people. I think that's still a good idea, is to leave them with something tangible that is big enough that it's not going to land in the garbage and that looks valuable enough. I had special envelopes made and all kinds of things so that it looked like it was a really special one-off piece, even though I had hundreds of them made. But that was a really good tool because some people would keep that in their files for years sometimes. And then when the need arose, out that came and I got the call. So yeah, I don't think that, calling in person Well, it's a little bit difficult now, but hopefully that will change. But making those in-person contacts, I think, is invaluable. And as Tula said right there, that there are some inroads to be made just with a little bit of ingenuity in the way that you approach those things. So congratulations on that. That's great. Anyone else?
No, I got a question for Tula on that. Did you said you create like a magazine or something like that?
Well, the Calgary Construction, they had the magazine, and we had a deal. I would go around and I'd shoot their projects, their people for their articles. Mostly the people is what I would shoot, the project in the background, because they would talk about the project, and usually they would talk about either the construction manager or the architect. And that would give me, the in to talk to these people.
Got it.
Plus, along with that, I would get myself a $3,000 full page ad in the annual magazine.
Nice.
So really you get paid pretty good with that. Plus you've got all these extra connections. But with that also, it doesn't mean that every single one is going to hire you, because a lot of them, they look at the budget, and, we've got a lot out there that are kind of giving it away. So some of them will go with that. They'll get in trouble and then they'll try you. So you just got to have to juggle it and see where it's good to waste your time or spend your time. But usually my better ones came from me bringing in a portfolio. I would sit down with my portfolio and just spread it out. And another thing you can do, which I used to do, is I would investigate who is the client, what buildings they've had. I'd shoot one of their buildings. I'd actually frame it and leave it with them.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think there's some other, as a tangent to that, I think there's some other things that we can do, bringing recognition to potential clients that might be favorable. I've been in a lot of situations where I've tagged somebody who was involved in a project, but didn't hire me for the project, nor did they license the image of the project. And I've gone ahead and tagged them or submitted that project to a magazine for publication. And all of a sudden, they're getting attention, and they know it came from me. And so I'm now, a really nice guy in their eyes. And that kind of spins off into some new contacts, some new clients, and some extra work, and ultimately some new licensing. And I've got one of my major clients that was exactly the way that happened, where I was doing work not for them, but they're a construction company, but for an architectural firm that they worked with rather closely. And in drawing attention to the projects and naming this construction company, I then became somebody that was on their radar where they were getting attention. And so it benefited me in the long run. Just another avenue that doesn't cost anything.
I've definitely done that in the past. I've even had projects that, parties have said they don't want to participate in cost sharing. And then, afterwards been, including them in all the credits, all the tagging and everything. I think they see that kind of as a nice gesture. And I've had, it was particularly a tile company that the same interior designer used them again the next time. And the next time they did participate in cost sharing after last time kind of being included. So I think that's a really good strategy.
Yeah, it's worked really well for me on any number of clients. So I highly recommend that. You feel a little bit cheated when you start doing it, but it does pay off in the end. Let's talk about websites, because I think that is our primary vehicle for marketing. Most people, when they are looking for a photographer, they don't have prior relationships in place. They're going to go on the web to look for a photographer. Now, some of you may have seen the post that I did about how much traffic we had on the AIAP website in February. It was a pretty astronomical jump, and the bandwidth was incredible to keep up with that. But we had like 180,000 unique visitors to the AIAP website. We typically have had about 100, and it dropped a little bit during COVID, but we were about that 100 to 110,000 unique views per month. And to jump to 180 in a 1 month period was pretty spectacular. But what that tells me on the backside is that they're clicking through and landing on people's websites, which have to be compelling enough to get them to contact that person directly, which is all of us that are on there, and try to make that assignment or get pricing or whatever it is they need to do. And so I'd kind of like to get your feelings about what makes an effective website. I was hoping that Lincoln Barber might be on this call. He was a website designer, but is there anybody here that has any ideas about what really makes them stand out on their website, or what will make someone stand out?
I think, if I may, for mine, I just updated mine, and I find I'm getting more traffic. They need to see the projects like right when they land, not search for them. So your homepage has to be the most appealing to them for them to go to the next page. So your best projects, your best work, everything has to be right in front of them, and then they'll go further. I designed this website that I have now. Sorry, I designed it on my own because I couldn't find anything out there that would work. So finally, I got something that I'm happy with, and I'm finally starting to get some activity.
Okay.
Again, yeah.
Have any of you gone to the extent of actually having clients give you feedback on your website? Tell me what I could do better, what needs to change? It's a scary proposition. I've done it. It's kind of painful, but it's very helpful. I found that there's some elements that really need to be in place for an effective website for photographers. And as Tula said, the first thing is they need to be able to see your work and see it well, and it has to be in a good resolution. That means that it's optimized for all different screen sizes, especially mobile. But in our industry, that's not necessarily the primary use. In fact, we found that it was not the primary type of user was a mobile. Most people are looking at our work on a desktop machine. They need to see it quickly, and it needs to be easy to navigate. That's the next one. And with that work, it needs to be, harking back to what Carl was talking about portfolio reviews and that kind of thing. Those were painful processes for those of you who were in ASMP. And the takeaway from that was always just show your best. And then from the best, filter it down to the best of the best. And so we don't need to show everything that we've done. I have a section on my website where I do have recent projects. And if I have a project that I think is worthy of showing, I put that in a different section. And it's a new project section. But my portfolio, if you really want to see the best of what I've done, that's how I've got it organized. And I don't have 1,000 pictures on there. I've narrowed it down and filtered it down significantly from what I started out with. I think that one of the things I heard back the most when I asked for feedback was that I had too much on there. I had too many images on there. And then it was not easy to navigate to the place where they could contact me. So I fixed that. That's another thing that I hear often from people who are photography buyers, is that it's hard to get to the place where you actually contact the photographer and how to do that. And so that's something else that I'd recommend that you take a hard look at. And then it doesn't hurt to have content on there that's valuable to a photography buyer. We all know that we have a lot of photographers looking at our websites, but I would recommend that that's not a market that we need to serve. And so let's have content on there that's useful to photography buyers, whether that's white papers or things such as a checklist for a photography assignment, a pre-shoot checklist or something like that, where we give them some information and help educate them just a little bit as to how to have a better experience with an architectural photographer. And then that call to action about putting a contact form on there. Tell me what you need and send it to me, and I'll make it easy for you to get a quotation, and there's no obligation. So those are some things that I've found to be valuable. And has anybody else got some input on that as to what needs to be there and what shouldn't be there? Thoughts?
Oh, sorry. Was someone going to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Norman.
I know for me, my website's very simple. I actually used to do web design ages ago during like HTML2 and when CSS first started. So I like things very simple, very easy to navigate. And for me, my website's very image based. So anytime I've talked with someone that specializes in like SEO, they're always trying to get me to put more language on pages. So I know for me, that's been a struggle of trying to, and I haven't done a good job of it, trying to shoehorn stuff in there, like you're saying about having more copy to help with your SEO versus just kind of keeping things simple with photography. But, I'm in Rhode Island, so it's maybe a smaller market. So I think when people look for Rhode Island architectural photographer, I do pop up because I've gotten a decent number of clients just that have found me on Google. So if folks haven't really talked to someone that specializes in SEO, I would definitely recommend that. I think it's been very helpful for me.
I agree. It was a revelation to me when I found out from somebody who was expert in that, what really needed to be on my website to push my ranking up. And it's not just great photographs. So
that's the last thing you need for that.
Exactly.
Disappointingly.
I have a couple comments. One is that most recently it was recommended that on each web page, including your homepage, landing page, that you have your contact information and also have the button that will take them immediately to a form that they can fill out and contact you directly. A lot of times people have on their about or on their contact page, they should have a photograph of themselves, and sometimes it populates automatically an email, or a form. And the feedback I got from one consultant was that the people they talk to often want to see your email address, and they want to talk. They want to be able to reach you email, text, and telephone quickly, and without filling out forms and specifying all the information that you may be seeking kind of in advance. The other thing is, as far as reviewing websites and such, like PhotoShelter and Squarespace are the two ones, and Zenfolio. I use all three for different purposes. But like Zenfolio does a weekly portfolio review, you can submit your website and have it expertly critiqued by the founder of Zenfolio, and he's pretty spot on. And I'm wondering if what platforms anybody else is using other than like their own WordPress custom site, and if they are happy with it or not, as far as a template system and a host.
I could comment a couple things that I've learned actually from Zenfolio and Zen's his critiques. One is try not to use the same photograph twice. You're thinking that although this particular photograph is really great, that should be shown twice. You're insulting the viewer, the person who's going through the work, taking a look. And then beyond that, also try to limit yourself unless you're doing, as Alan had said, a most recent project where you've got several shots of the same building, for example. Try to limit, not making it more of a viewer diagram of just one building. Try to at least scatter it out if you're doing that.
Client list I would say is very important. And also show them by name some of the projects that you've done. That kind of gives them some ease that you do have some experience.
To Carl's point about some web suppliers that are happy with or not happy with, I redid my website last summer because there wasn't a whole lot of else to do last summer, and mine was woefully outdated. And I was going to use Photofolio, which was recommended by Wonderful Machine. But when I got right down to it, I really hated Photofolio's navigation buttons. They were clunky to me and not smooth at all. And someone that came recommended to me and had templates that I liked and navigation I liked was PhotoBiz. So I ended up going with them. And my one reluctance with PhotoBiz was that they're very retail photography centric. They're not commercial photography centric. And I have found that to be a detriment with them. And I've talked to them about this from time to time. And they're like, oh no, we get commercial photography, but honestly, they don't. They just don't. And so, their SEO suggestions are they'd be great for a retail photographer. Nothing against retail photography, just not what we do. So in all honesty, I haven't been real happy with PhotoBiz. And when my year with them is up, I'll look at probably switching to Photofolio since they did come recommended from Wonderful Machine. And I have a question for you on that, Carl. You mentioned that you've been dealing with them. I've been talking with them off and on over the last couple of years. Did you find Wonderful Machine to be a valuable resource for you?
Yes and no. I was a subscriber to them, so I was paying $179 a month for probably 2 years. One of my board members, ASMT Connecticut, who shoots, doesn't do architecture and interiors, but is more of an event photographer or very high-end event photographer and, people portrait lifestyle type. She got tons and tons of work through the portal that Wonderful Machine operates. But for me, I got 0 jobs out of it. So it was just a big expense. Where I did find them of value is in the resource in terms of web edits and consultants. And I did get a 20% discount on the pricing on that because I was a monthly member. And they do vet you. So there is a sense of achievement if you are accepted in as one of their, vetted photographers. And I will say that when I joined AIAP, I started getting calls and jobs from all over the country for regional, like I did shoot in New Hampshire. I got serious inquiries. Actually, we were going to shoot in Long Island, but then the train station forbid me to go there and shoot. So that got canceled. But there's been a number of referrals that I've gotten directly, I think, from this website that have turned into thousands of dollars worth of work. So I find more value being here than I ever did with Wonderful Machine. So that's not a paid endorsement, but it is the truth.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. There was one of the major architectural photographers in the DC market was represented by them for a long time. And then I noticed that he wasn't anymore. And, that to me says, well, if this was working for you, you'd keep up doing it. Duh. So anyway, thanks.
So I think they're great, and it depends what business you're in, but I really don't think it's of great value because I don't think architects tend to go there. I think they tend more to go to, or it's been my experience, they go to AIAP. IP?
AIAP, yes.
AIAP. It's a tongue twister. I don't know why.
It is.
But
I agree.
It's a great site, and I appreciate your creating it. And I will say that these monthly meetings are invaluable, and I'm so glad you started doing them because then you learn so much from your colleagues. So this is priceless.
Thanks. Thank you, Carl. I appreciate that. I have a former assistant who is one of the higher ups in Wonderful Machine at this point, and he's a great guy. And I talked to him early on about this, and I have nothing against Wonderful Machine. I know that for some people it's just an amazing situation, but he, in all candor, told me it's not really a good fit for architectural photographers, and did not recommend that I go down that road. And so I appreciate his honesty with me in that they do some wonderful work for people. And there's an endless number of people out there trying to promote photographers. But it's a tough niche, I think, to promote architectural photographers to photography buyers. There's a lot of sites that get attention from photographers looking at other photographers, but that doesn't translate into dollars. And so all of our attention and all of our marketing, you will probably never see as far as the AIAP goes, because we're targeting people who actually have the ability to hire photographers. And so the direct marketing, the direct email, and that sort of thing that we do is all to verified and vetted photography buyers. And SMPS comprises a big chunk of that, as do marketing directors for a lot of the AEC type industries around the country. We don't market too much outside of the US. The focus is the United States primarily, because that's where the bulk of our membership is. But there are some other things that happen, and there are some journals in the UK which, give us good press from time to time, and I love that. But our focus is still on photography buyers. I just wanted to talk for a moment, and let's kind of switch gears if we could for a moment, and just talk about the role of social media in your marketing. I'm curious to know that if there is an actual benefit that anybody's been able to quantify from being on social media, whether it's Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever. Are any of those platforms actually bringing you business?
I would have to say LinkedIn is for architectural photographers.
Okay.
So what I've done with LinkedIn, I do pay for the premium because I do like to know who's looking at the ads.
Yeah.
My whole connections there are all construction people, construction managers, the people that hire us for photography. And I do post there, and I've had quite a few jobs message me. Mm-hmm. But what I did find works very well is when I post a project and I actually tag the company. And I also say, if you've worked on this wonderful project, tell us about it. And I get so much going on there on some of my posts. And, the more activity you get, the more they see it. But I have had success with LinkedIn. Facebook, no. Instagram, I wouldn't even go to those for that. But LinkedIn, yeah, I post my awards. And especially if it's a client's building that has won an award, I always post that one. And I always tag them. And if anything, LinkedIn.
Thank you. I agree completely with what you just said as far as LinkedIn goes, and that being the platform for our industry. And what you said about engagement, putting in there something that solicits a reply or a comment, the exposure becomes exponential with something like that. It gets to people that you normally would never be able to contact or have exposure to. And that just continues to help build your brand. I use a product called Hootsuite, Hoot Suite. It's a free service if you have only up to 3 different social media platforms. And it allows you to post things and calendar them so that they roll out. And so maybe once a month, I will calendar a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks of posts, and then I'm done and I don't look at it again. And so that it's not consuming my time. And honestly, I don't know that I've ever gotten a job based on somebody seeing me on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook.
No.
LinkedIn, absolutely, but not the others.
I definitely found clients on Instagram. I'm surprised that I would say more so than like just from my posts. I message prospective clients on Instagram.
Okay.
And I think the response there is better than just like cold emails or something like that. Mm-hmm. Instagram Messenger, I think, is like, for me, is invaluable. Because who's ever posting to that social media account, the person at that firm that's going to respond to an email, or the marketing person, or someone you'd want to get in touch with anyways. And a lot of times those people are more apt to communicate than like a principal or something like that. So
I think that's a good point that you made there, that's actually the person that's probably going to contact a photographer.
Yeah, exactly.
May I ask, is anybody else using MailChimp?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, it didn't work very well for me.
Yeah, so far it's worked out well for me. As long as I keep it informational, that I'm trying to share information about how something is done or how something could be done, then it seems to elicit a lot more than just shooting out a MailChimp message with photographs of a particular assignment, for example.
I think that goes back to the brand building and the education process that I talked about earlier. That this kind of reinforces our brand with people. I use a different service. It's the same kind of concept. It's a direct email. And my blast goes to many thousands of people who are verified photography buyers. And some of them may hold on to my emails for a long time before I hear back from them. But with every blast, I do it only quarterly, but with every blast that I do, I usually end up with 3 or 4 assignments as a result of that. So it works out very well for me. But I can't just do it as look at a pretty, this is a pretty picture look kind of thing. It's got to have some content to it. Yeah, Carl.
Exactly.
Alan, how did you build your mailing list? Did you buy any of the contact information, or did you do it organically by having kind of a sign up on your website?
I've done it both ways. I have bought lists, and I have had people do email scraping for me to create lists based on some pretty specific criteria, because I just don't want everybody that's a member of AIA or everybody that's a member of ASID. That's not going to work. They have to actually be a decision maker with regard to photography. Having a sign up email form on your website is going to get around all of those problems. And I don't have one on there right now, but when I have had one, I would get a couple hundred people a month who would want to be on my list and have me email to them. And those of them who had an obvious photography email address, I didn't add. But those who didn't, I was happy to put on there, and that's worked well. So direct email I do once a quarter, and it always brings in work, and it's been a good vehicle for me. Dale, did you have?
Are you using Constant Contact?
I use Benchmark email. Yeah.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Yeah, Dale.
Yeah, that was my question. Which service you use? I've been doing it just on my own, and I do it quarterly as well, which generally brings in some jobs. But I'm in a very architectural photography rich market in Seattle.
Yeah.
There's some very good photographers, and all the big firms seem to have already had a really good relationship with one or two. So a lot of my clients are smaller clients, and I get a lot of jobs by referral. I should say I've gotten a lot of good referrals from AIAP website too. So that's worked well, but a lot of stuff said today is really hopeful. I'm going to look into it. Unfortunately, my web designer passed away, so I have to find a new web designer or not web guy. I've been wanting to update my website for some time, but really good suggestions. I really appreciate this forum today.
Thanks, Dale. One thing that I heard from a colleague of mine who's actually in the portrait and wedding industry is that he's actually got a college intern that's putting together his new website. This is someone who needs to do this for college credit, but they're also in a position where they know the newest and the latest and the best, and they're able to put something together for him that's going to really work well, I think, and both on a design standpoint and for an SEO standpoint. And it's not costing him anything, and it's benefiting both he and this intern. So I've had a lot of interns in the past. I haven't done that for several years, but interns have been a really good source for me for people who were really well qualified to work with me, and they gained a lot and I gained a lot, and it was a really good relationship. So just another thought, if you don't want to spend $10,000 on a website, maybe there's somebody that would be able to do it for you for college credit. One last thing I'd like to bring up, and that's brand building and brand consistency. And I hear this a lot from people in the marketing and advertising industries. I don't know that the people that actually buy our photography are really well tuned into this. They're learning it, and they're learning it more and more. But building a brand so that your website and anything you send to them is recognizable is really important. And it kind of starts out with some help from a good graphic designer to put together your brand identity, and then sticking with that so that all of your materials that you send out and all of your communications, from your website to your business card to whatever, all work together. And we know from the successful companies in the world today that brand identity is a huge part of that. And once that gets tampered with in any way, then the company seems to suffer from it. So a good investment in some good graphic design would really be helpful for a lot of us. I invested early on with a designer, and it was more money than I could afford at the time, but it was worth every penny. And I have not changed that basic design model or platform for 30 years. And so when people get something from me, they know immediately who it's coming from. And they recognize my work based on that brand identity. So I think brand identity is something that we tend not to think too much about, but I'd recommend that it's going to help build awareness and keep awareness among your clients and potential clients if you go that route. Anybody else have thoughts that we ought to consider before we wrap this up? We're at the top of the hour now. Anything else from anybody? Okay. I think this is yeah.
One quick thing. I don't know if I mentioned this in our last meeting, but I had discovered a rather massive infringement by not a client, but somebody that worked with some of my quite a number of my clients. And I'm happy to report that I got, without having to retain a lawyer or go down any legal route, I got a really nice check in compensation for
good for you.
All the usage.
Good for you.
And it was just a matter of basically just to call them up. And I said, hey, I noticed you're using this stuff all over the place, including on your website, social media, as the background page for a lot of the pages on their website. And I don't recall ever licensing this to you. What can you tell me about it? And they said, didn't know we had to. And do you want to meet in person or by Zoom? And I said, I'd love to meet in person. We set up a meeting for the next day. We ended up spending 3 hours together. The first hour was kind of portfolio review and talking about projects that I had done in the past that were in common with what they had done. And so that we talked about possibly licensing the new projects or the current projects. And then the next hour was about talking about upcoming projects. And then the last 20 minutes was basically going through screen grabs that I had on my iPad from all of the infringements. And there was like 70. And then I presented them with an invoice. A couple of days later, I got an email that said, the check is being, processed right now. Let's talk about the new projects that we're going to do. So I think I gained a client. I have sent out like 18 projects that I've already shot that they may want to pick 1 or 2 or 3 pictures from to license. And I got a nice big check in compensation for the past use. And it was an innocent infringement. And I knew that and I said that.
Thank you, Carl.
It's great.
You handled that very well, and I applaud you for that. I'm not that kind of guy, and I congratulations.
That probably should be a monthly meeting, because there's 1,000 little things in there that could be expanded upon.
Absolutely.
Educating people about licensing, I think, is one of the most important parts of this industry.
I think you're right. We had our last meeting last month was about cost and license sharing and copyright. And I think there was enough feedback after that and enough questions that came in that a second meeting is certainly warranted. So I think we should probably do that. And I want to thank each of you and hope that you have a wonderful week. Meet us back here next month, and I'll put that announcement out and that invitation for our next Zoom meeting. And in the meantime, please submit your topics for discussion. We'll let you know what comes out on top. Thanks to everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good day. Bye.
This has been another episode of A Photographer's Life. If you've enjoyed this program, please let us know by liking this episode and subscribing to this channel. A Photographer's Life is brought to you by the Association of Independent Architectural Photographers. This episode is copyrighted and may not be used in full or in part without the written permission of the AIAP. Please join us again soon for another inside look at the world of professional architectural photography.